Cairo, Seattle.
It's episode 2 of Fight and MMA Podcast, and I think the first one went pretty well, Bob. It was maybe a little more formal than people are used to or accustomed to.
I thought it went really well, and they invited us back for number 2, so that's a good sign.
Which is good. Our debut voyage included Josh Barnett, a former UFC heavyweight champion, so it's hard to match that. He's a guy that's at sort of one end of his career. He's been fighting professionally for 20 years and done it all over the world. Our guest in the second episode is going to be on almost the exact opposite end.
Before you get there, can I just bring you quickly up to speed? We had Josh Barnett in studio, right? He was in town. He was coaching the LA team. It was Team LA versus Team Seattle at the EQC.
Well, that's right, and there were the confusing pronouns.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so I did the play-by-play of that event, and I saw Josh in the back where the fighters were warming up, and I went up to him, "Hey, Josh, man, it was great to talk to you. Great to have you in studio." And he gave me a look like he had no idea who I was. He couldn't have looked more unfamiliar. He looked at me like I was a fan on the street. And he just goes, "Oh, yeah, cool." I went, "All right, good luck." I honestly believe he had no recollection of who I was.
From 24 hours, or I guess it was 48 hours.
Either
earlier.
that or that's just his demeanor. He sat in here for almost an hour. We talked to him. We all laughed. We had a great time. I thought we bonded. And then I saw him back there warming up, and maybe he was just focused on the job at hand, but it was before they really got, probably 45 minutes before the first fight. So he was just kind of unpacking some gear, and thought it was a good time. Hey, it was awesome to have you in there. Really enjoyed the conversation. That was fun. And he just kind of looked at me. You could just, when you see the look in somebody's eye, yeah, it was fun.
You'd think that when someone comes to another person's workplace and spends about an hour, not only that, before sitting in the studio, goes and uses our restroom for about 15 minutes.
That's exactly right.
A good solid 15.
Yeah, he disappeared for a while.
Yeah, and then to not even recognize you, I mean, I'm not going to say the feelings should be hurt, but
well, maybe he did, and that's just his demeanor. Maybe he was like, "Well, it was fun for you. It was every other day for me."
Well, how did his team do? Because he was coaching Team LA. Did they?
They won big.
Yeah.
Team Seattle, I think, won 2 of the matches, and Team LA dominated.
And that was there at the Emerald Queen.
Emerald Queen, yeah, packed house, great card. Former University of Husky Brett Knopp was the headliner. Matt Hume fighter, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So he won. They won their first fight and the last fight and lost everything in between.
That was in there. And there's another card locally this weekend, and that's actually going to be the subject of our guest, Phoenix Jones, whose real name, nom de guerre, is Phoenix Jones. His real name is Ben Fodor.
Yeah.
We're going to have him in here. He's fighting on a World Series of Fighting card that's taking place up in Everett. But I think one of the things that's interesting about this card and this bout in particular is Ben Fodor is fighting his brother. His brother is Karos Fodor. And it's become that storyline kind of embodies what we see as feuds, which has been a very traditional way of marketing MMA fights, is this guy really doesn't like
it's the old wrestling bit. It's everything, right?
And I find that to be typically one of the more uninteresting. Maybe when I first started watching the UFC, I was into that, but I've found that has kind of it doesn't matter as much to me anymore.
It's not going to be the thing that determines whether you watch the fight or not.
Right. And I find that generally when you watch it, that usually gets built up, and whether it's the fighters convincing themselves that they don't like the guy they're fighting because that's a necessary step in preparing for the fight, or it's a way to sell tickets, I find that usually that melts away over the course of the bout. And the number of times I've seen two guys who really still don't like each other at the end of the fight is fleeting. It's less than 10.
But when it's done well, I really enjoy it. And I'm talking Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo. That was done well.
Okay.
And Jose Aldo, to this day, still hates Conor McGregor, whereas I think Conor was playing the part, and I think he believes everything he says, but he puts it on 10. Instead of just saying, "Hey, I'm better than this guy, I'm going to beat him," he just cranks it up to 10 and goes nuts with it. And Jose Aldo was not receptive to him after the fight. After he was knocked out, he hasn't been to this day. So I think that was real. The John Jones, Daniel Cormier, that's real. That's true and sincere dislike. And I think the more you watch it, you've watched a ton of fights. I've watched a ton of fights. I think you can sense when it's hype versus reality. I like when it's real.
Where do you think it goes to where it gets real for one of the guys, or does it get real for both of them? How did Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo get to that point? Because McGregor did crazy stuff after he beat, was it Mendez? And he goes and hops out.
Well, he beat Mendez because Jose Aldo got hurt.
Hurt.
It
So
was
it was the
supposed
fight
to be.
before that. It was Dennis
Yeah.
Seaver. When he hopped
the fence and ran
when
out
he
there,
hopped
yeah.
the fence, he puts his face probably about 8 feet away from Jose
Yeah,
Aldo.
people jumped in and to separate him.
And he just screams. That's
Yeah.
all he did, was just get there and scream. And I believe it was after the Seaver fight, because that's what he called the little German steroid head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he just goes and tunes him up. And that's actually a good point, because I kind of like the fact that Conor McGregor irritated Jose Aldo to this point. At this point, it's much more personal to Jose Aldo than it is to Conor.
Much. Well, you get knocked out in 13 seconds. You don't even represent yourself. You don't even show up when you're the destructor of all. And this guy lives up to everything he said and more. And I remember before that fight, Conor McGregor posted a picture of himself looking down at a camera. The shot was from basically like if you were lying on the ground and taking a picture of him looking down on you. And this is before the fight. This is a couple weeks before the fight. And he says, "It's okay, Jose. Wake up now." And I'm like, wow, that was clever, and it was good, and it turned out to be true.
And he also goes and Conor went and toured around Brazil and proclaimed it was his country.
Well, yeah, I remember he took his belt from him at the press conference. I mean, he was the ultimate antagonist, and he followed through on everything he said, and it was real. The dislike was much more on the side of Jose. Like, it got under his skin. And it was made worse by being knocked out in 13 seconds. So that's a sincere dislike. Just getting back to the original point. Whereas you see guys who talk a lot of smack, then afterwards they're hugging, and there's always that respect. Even if they don't like each other, they'll show that respect. But it'll show up in the post-fight press conference like, hey, so-and-so's a great fighter. He had a great night. I respect him. Then you'll see it was kind of hype versus Bisping and Rockhold.
Yeah.
That's real. I watched that entire post-fight press conference where there were expletives being it was like they were hyping the next fight already. You know what I mean? They were calling each other names, and they had to be separated at the end of the press conference where Luke Rockhold was coming off of just being freshly knocked out, and he wants to go with him right there in the post-fight press conference.
That was an odd one, because Rockhold basically just kept telling Bisping he was being a jerk.
Yeah.
And in different ways, and then Bisping kind of fired back at him. But basically, Rockhold's point was, you accept your respect, don't be such a jerk about it.
Right.
And then Bisping
But that was real
Bisping.
dislike.
Yeah,
that wasn't,
true.
Hey, buddy, it was all in fun. It was all to build the fight. You're a great fighter. I respect. No, it was sincere dislike. So I think that element, when it's real, I think people, it's almost tangible. I think people can sort of feel that, and it makes it more intriguing for me.
Where do you think Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor is? Because it's not Conor's first loss. It's his first loss in the UFC.
Yes.
And Nate Diaz, the Diaz brothers are sort of their own little individual caricature.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah, I know you do.
You don't seem to be so impressed with
I'm not nearly as enamored with them as you are.
Their intellect has not sort of piqued your curiosity.
Yeah, I'm not trying to dig deeper. Let's get deep inside of the Diaz mind. What is he really saying?
Do you think it's kind of like, you remember the movie Sling Blade?
Yes.
And John Ritter's character, when he goes to him, he goes, "You're a deep thinker, aren't you?"
What are you thinking right now?
French fried potatoes.
I like more than taters. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Where do you think the Diaz McGregor is? Because we're starting to see the build up already this week. I saw Nate Diaz. He was on Speak for Yourself on Fox Sports 1. This is going to start. Where do you think the antagonism between those two ranks?
I don't think there's a sincere dislike. In fact, I don't get that at all from McGregor even last time. I think he was trying to get under his skin. He was trying to mock him, his build, calling him a skinny fat guy, all that stuff. But it wasn't. I don't think there was a hate. And I still don't think there's a hate. He still is just kind of talking smack, saying, "Hey, you won the lotto when you beat me. I know it and you know it. You won the lotto, man, and congratulations, and it's going to be a different night." And I don't see it nearly as personal as his Jose Aldo stuff was to Jose Aldo. And I think Diaz, for his part, is either too thick or just doesn't care. Just kind of rolls with it like, whatever, dude, it's going to be the same result, you know?
You're not slurring enough.
Yeah,
like it's actually you enunciated a little too well there to do your proper Diaz brother. The other thing that should be pointed out: Conor McGregor's the best smack talker we've seen in the UFC.
Yeah, since Chael Sonnen.
Even Chael, man, Conor's routine about the red panties.
Yeah,
when he tells them that it's a
you better explain to people what that means if they're not sure.
So what it started with Dos Anjos.
Yeah,
and they were at a press conference. So there's 16 fighters that are sitting there, and Conor McGregor explains that when you get to fight me, it's a red panty night, which means that you get that date, you call your wife and you say, honey, wear the red panties tonight. We're rich. We get to fight Conor McGregor. And then he modified that with Diaz, saying that Nate doesn't call his wife, but he calls his older brother Nick, because they're always...
He's incredibly clever, man. He's a quick thinker. He's quick on his feet with the words in terms of his quips are just right there. I love him. I understand he's polarizing. I understand there are a lot of people that love seeing him lose, want to see him lose again. But I think what he does, there's a fun element to it. I'm sure the guy across from it receiving it doesn't find it fun. But you can't dispute the results. That was the biggest pay-per-view card in the history of the UFC.
Yes.
The biggest. And that's with a replacement fighter.
With less than 2 full weeks of a build-up.
That speaks to the power and the effectiveness of Conor McGregor.
Well, that is UFC 202. That's going to be coming up about a month from now. We'll certainly spend some time talking about that. This weekend there is a card as well. Robbie Lawler is going to be fighting Woodley for the title.
Tyron Woodley, yeah.
That's going to be a very interesting card. And the other one that's happening locally is the World Series of Fighting. And we're gonna be joined by Ben Fodor, better known as Phoenix Jones, who is part of the card. And I don't know if either one of us knew quite what to expect, but I've never had an interview like this before.
It's literally one of the best interviews I've been a part of with a fighter. He's incredibly intelligent, well-spoken, and candid. And that's an understatement. I mean, no matter where we went. I mean, we went from politics to food to family relations to fighting crime to actual fighting in the cage. I mean, we covered it all. And to say he was candid and forthcoming, I think, is an understatement. He's a great personality, and he's unlike just about any fighter I've seen on a week where they're cutting weight. Most of the time, they're drained, they're cranky, they're giving you these pat answers where they're just, yeah, it's going to be a good fight. I can't wait to get in there, blah, blah. You know, they're not eating. They don't want to be talking and answering the same questions over and over and over. So typically you're getting kind of a limp interview from a lot of these guys. He was polar opposite.
Yeah, he's going to talk about everything from Black Lives Matter to Donald Trump to catching himself in a hog net and nearly drowning. That's all going to be part of our conversation next. And he's a superhero, so we should probably at least give the setup, right? We don't just, with a comic book, it doesn't just all of a sudden start. You give him a little bit of the backstory.
For people who aren't in Seattle.
Phoenix Jones is a crime-fighting superhero. He emerged in about 2011, was when you saw a series of stories written about him. He had a whole group with him, and they were called the Rain City Superhero Movement, with a very simple premise of they were going to stop crime in the Seattle area. Now, he's also got an alter ego. Well, not really an alter ego. We'll get into that with him. But his name is Ben Fodor. He was born in Texas. I have a hard time with the name. You're going to hear that coming up next, too. Ben Fodor. It's Fodor. He was born in Texas.
Yeah.
Grew up in group homes around here. You amused by my pronunciation problems?
Yeah, I just like that you call yourself out. I think that's great.
It's just, well, you kind of get tongue-tied, and then you're like, do I just pretend that didn't happen and
Nah,
nobody will look at it?
I screwed it up. I'm going to say it properly now.
Ben Fodor.
There you go.
He is going to be fighting his brother, and you've watched Ben fight a couple times.
I have. I saw him up at the Emerald Queen Casino twice, and I've seen his fights in World Series of Fighting as well. So I've seen him fight quite a few times.
And this is going to be his... He's 6-1-1, so this will be his ninth pro MMA fight.
Right.
He fought for a number of years as an amateur. His third fight in the World Series of Fighting.
Against his adopted brother.
Who he does not care for.
And it's real. It's real.
Yes.
Right? We start out by talking about, all right, there's hype, and then there's reality.
Because we try to give him the wink, wink, nod. Kind of, we know what's going on here, Ben.
You're trying to sell tickets.
Do you really hate the guy?
Yeah. It's real. It's palatable. It is. It's a very sincere, real dislike between brothers.
You're going to hear that. That's next. Ben Fodor sits down with us. We're with Ben Fodor. Did I say your name right?
Yes, close enough. I mean,
how do I say it?
Well, get it right.
It's like odor with an F in front.
Fodor.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Ben Fodor is with us. He's going to be fighting this weekend, which is pretty cool, up in Everett. He's going to be taking on his adopted brother. How would we describe Karos?
I guess he's just my brother. I mean,
okay. You're going to be fighting him.
Yeah.
6-1-1 is your mixed martial arts record. This is going to be for the World Series of Fighting event that's there.
Yeah.
You've been fighting for a long time. How did you get into it?
I've been fighting for a little over a decade now. Yeah. I mean, you have a flat top, man, and you bowl a lot. You're gonna get into some fights. I mean, some of the hardest fights I've ever been in were actually in bowling alleys. I was a national bowling champion. I don't know if people know that, but
Really?
yeah, you go bowl in Hayden Lake, Idaho, and you beat a bunch of white dudes out at bowling. You better throw down.
Well, they take their sport seriously.
So, I mean, that's where I learned. That's where most of my hard fights were in bowling alleys.
Now, what did you like most about bowling? Was it the black ball knocking down the white pins? What
Wow,
was
why is it got to
exciting
get
about it?
racial
like
now?
that.
Why?
Well, no, he didn't even say it right. It's black ball knocking down a bunch of rednecks. But no, what I actually preferred the most was winning. I like anything that I win at. If I found out I was the best at playing like freaking Parcheesi, I would immediately be like, I'm a 4-time Parcheesi champion because I've taken my skills to limit. I'm an escalator. Like, if I see something I'm good at, I always push it to as far as it can be. It's why I get injured a lot.
What was your average?
When I quit, I was 247 for the final season.
Really?
Yeah.
Man,
I'm in the National National Bowling Museum and Hall of Fame under hometown heroics for the most 300 games under 21. So
really?
it's Googleable for the haters on there.
I choked. I approached 200 once, and I choked on the last frame.
Really?
Yeah, I got excited. 200.
Yeah, I've never touched 200.
I'm going to hurt your feelings right now.
That's
but
all right.
if you hit all spares, that's 199. If you just close all the frames,
Right.
What you could do, one spare, one spare, one spare. Or you could go 3 spare, whatever you want, and close all frames. It's 99. So what you're telling me is you can't make one strike and close all your frames.
Something like that. I'm just telling you, I choked on the last frame when I knew all I needed were 7 pins to get to 200, and
That literally, if you had 7 pins to get to 200, and you didn't, did you spare your 9th frame?
I don't remember. All I remember is the end and choking.
Assuming you spared your 9th frame, that means you threw 4 strikes in that process, and you opened up 3 or 4 frames depending on where your strikes were positioned. So you're only shooting 50% accuracy. So theoretically, you would be better off just I'll be never bowling again.
That was my best game ever.
He told you he was going to hurt your feelings. I think
Just
you might have
bowling
just
math.
done that.
I don't take my bowling that seriously, so I'm okay with that.
It's like being like, one time I turned the radio on during my show.
Yeah.
The other time I just recorded my own voice.
All right, now that we've achieved a proper level of humiliation here.
Well, see, here's the thing is now I'm going to get more curious. How do you go from being an aspiring bowling champion to being a fighter?
Well, they kind of go together, man. Like I said, you win at a bowling match, and then you take everybody's money. How bowling works, people don't get this. The pro bowling circuit, where you're on TV, like the ESPN circuit, they pay you because of advertisements and stuff. The other circuits aren't like that. It's basically a 50-50 raffle where skill gets you half the ticket money. So you show up, you might pay $100 to enter. 50 of that goes to the prize pool. The other 50 goes to whatever bowling alley it is. And at the end, they just take everybody's cash, divide it up, and hand it to you. And then you walk out through the parking lot. So
do your best to hang on to that
yeah.
cash.
So I mean, people were not super happy. Like some 17-year-old kid was in there just stomping fools. They weren't happy.
So you were a hustler.
Oh, it's not a hustler. It was totally legal.
But it's like Color of Money, sort of pool shark.
Oh yeah, it was.
Except he
super
wasn't
bad.
trying to convince him he wasn't really that good, and then
that's
crushing
true. He
him.
didn't
True.
sandbag.
Yeah. No, I walked.
You
in
came
with-
out strong.
Oh yeah, shirts and all kinds of gear. And then when you bowl, there's a rule: you can only celebrate for 5 seconds after the balls hit the pin. Right.
Really?
But what I realized is once you let go completely, right, the ball still takes like 3 or 4 seconds to roll. So I would do all kinds of dumb things, like screaming at people, jumping on the ground and swimming, and
man.
standing up and surfing. It was so bad. Like, it was a pretty bad experience for people.
What happens past 5 seconds? Is there a whistle? Somebody say, "All right,
Well, there's,
penalty." What? I
There's
didn't.
a penalty.
I didn't know there was a rule.
Just like a lane foul, like if you across the line, you get a foul. There's a penalty. The first one's a warning, right? The second one, it's a rethrow, and then the third one, the score doesn't count. So what you could do is if you're winning by a lot, like, for example, like I was winning one tournament going into the last game of an 8-game series. I was up by 301.
Okay.
Meaning that it was impossible for anyone to win, right?
Yeah.
So I spent the entire time fouling.
By celebrating?
Across the line, celebrated. I made myself some tea on the lane. Just whatever you want, because they can't win anyway. Right?
And you wonder why these guys were uptight with him. I don't know.
Yeah,
This is fantastic.
it was real confusing.
Yeah, I didn't think this was going to get more interesting than having someone who's a superhero and also fights, and now I find out that it is. It is.
As I explained before we got on here, man, once you stop eating food, there's this level of realness that happens. That it's honestly really, really, really bad.
Yeah, we should make it clear. It's Wednesday that we're talking to you. Not sure when you'll be listening to the podcast. You're going to be fighting Saturday, so
Yeah.
you're in the middle of a weight cut.
Oh yeah. I'm super deep in a weight cut. I'm right next to bad decisions.
Because you're fighting at 162.
Yeah.
A catch weight. And you walk around about 205, you said?
Yeah, pretty close right there.
And you fight at 170.
Normally I fight at
as a welterweight.
But I'm fighting a midget this time, so I got to cut my weight down a little bit.
The love between you and your brother is, I've as you see, you got on the screen here, I'm just reading different interviews with the two of you.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty consistent theme with the both of you. And Danny and I were talking before this. I'm going, all right, listen, it's the fighter's job to hype a fight. We all know that, right? And I'm wondering how much of this is honest to goodness dislike, and how much of it is, hey, we need to sell this. Yeah, there's dislike, but let's ramp it up.
No.
I'm getting the head shake in the background. No, it's real.
Yeah. So there's people that I don't like. Like if I'm gonna hype a fight, there's things like I could just make something up or be funny. The thing that sucks about Karros is that I didn't have a problem with him.
He was in your corner fairly recently.
That's
right?
what makes this fight so much worse, is that I didn't have a problem with him, and he had some internal problem with me, didn't explain it in an appropriate way like adults do, decided to sign a fight with Ray Sefo, and then call me, and they're all like, yo, your brother already signed a contract to fight you. You're going to fight him. And they're expecting, and my mom's mad at me, telling me I'm not supposed to fight him and everybody like that. I'm like, look, if you call me out, be prepared to get it. You ask for the bull, get the horns. I'm not going to walk away. Like, be the bigger man. Well, yeah, I will be. I'm the bigger man by 20 pounds, and I will walk in the cage, and I will destroy you. Like, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
There's part of me that feels a little bad, though, that just this is the first time I've met you, but it's your brother, and you don't want to see something like a sport come in between two dudes like this.
I didn't want to, but it did. And now that it did, I mean, the only option is to kill him.
And it sounds like you guys have had peace, and then you've had friction, and you've had peace throughout your life. Just in reading an interview, you talked about some of the things that he had done to you in the past. I mean, so it's not like you guys were just loving, bonded brothers, and all of a sudden this thing happened. This has been kind of an up-and-down relationship.
Yeah, but the difference is that when me and him talk about something that happened in the past, right, like these stories, they're funny stories, and they're anecdotal, and they're interesting, right? But they're not posted on your record of the thing that you care about the most in life forever. This is a fight where the winner will be put in the history book as the winner. You'll live with that for the rest of your life. Every fight from here on out, when they announce your name, they're going to announce your win record and your loss record, and you will know that loss happened to your brother. He's crossed the line, and he's put it somewhere that is not fixable. Like, we will never be friends again.
No matter what.
Well, if I knock him out, which is the plan, and he can get over that, then we'll probably be friends. If he beats me, there is absolutely 0% chance that I will ever forgive you for putting me in this position.
And I think he said that. He said something about, I'm reading another interview that he did where they kind of went back and forth with the both of you.
Yeah.
And he said, his quote is, there's going to be problems as a result of the fight, but it won't be on my end. It'll be because he's an emotional pussy. If he beats me, fine. I can take the loss and not hold any grudges. Problem is, I'm going to whoop his ass, and I know he won't grow up and be a man about it.
Part of that's accurate. We really got to talk. I mean, that part of that's true. When he calls me an emotional pussy, he's 100% right, because I hate losing, and he's used to being a loser. See, the difference is in high school, you tried to wrestle, and you didn't make state champion. I won districts in 8th grade, realized my potential, and didn't try to push that any further. You did bowling for 2 weeks. I became a 4-time national champion. You decided to be an MMA fighter. You won, 2 amateur belts? I won 5 belts in 5 different weight classes. The difference is that I'm a champion at everything I do, and you, my friend, are an average athlete. So when you lose, it's probably not the worst thing for you. You're happy to have just competed. When I lose, it is a life-shattering, devastating, destroying event, because how could that person possibly get in the cage with me and walk away the winner? It is absurd. It's like God took his finger, touched someone, and said, today you've been blessed. It's a horrible, horrible experience.
How did you start fighting after the bowling, and when you got into you're obviously incredibly passionate about it. How did you make this sort of your primary job, what you wanted to do with your life?
It was a weird transition. So, I was fighting for a long time as an amateur. I mean, I was 25-2 as an amateur. I had the 155, 170, and 185 belts simultaneously in a bunch of different organizations. And at a certain point, I was like, this is stupid. Like, these guys suck. No one can beat me at fighting. This is really, really dumb. I've got other things to do. I'm not getting paid. I'm not making any money. Like, this is just dumb. And I was like, and I kind of quit. Went on, did some other things. Just did other things. Then the Phoenix Jones thing happened, where I started using my skills to beat up criminals. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Because, you always wonder what the escalation is, right? Mm-hmm. okay, you beat some dudes up in a cage, but how many dudes have beat dudes up with knives? Well, I have. How many people have taken down dudes with guns? Well, I have. How many people have pulled a dude out of a car who's trying to escape? I have, right? So after a while, you're like, this was the natural escalation. You started Taekwondo, then you did wrestling, then you did MMA. Now I'm doing the real thing. They call it no-holds-barred combat in MMA. It's not. No-holds-barred combat is when some dude shoots at you. That's no-holds-barred combat. So I was like, yes, this is the next escalation. Then I realized I'm spending so much money doing this that I'm now really broke. And a promoter guy calls me, a guy I don't like, Tad. He's a totally dishonest piece of crap. So why I'm on here, you still owe me money. You owe a bunch of my friends money. Cage Warrior Combat sucks. And if you have a problem with me saying that, maybe you should pay your people, Tad. What do you call it? Anyways, but he calls me and he's like, Phoenix, listen, buddy. I got this league and it's going to be really cool. And there's always people. I'm going to need you to, come fight for me, and I'll pay you all this money to do it because I'm a liar. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. Let's do that. So I went over, I fought, and I beat that guy up. And
that was your first pro fight?
That was my first pro fight. Zach Khan, who, man, what is an interesting character. That dude was like 6'5" at 170. He's huge. And he was like 20 years old or 21, and I was 22 maybe. And the whole time he's just swearing at me. He's walking to the cage. F you, man. You can't beat me, and pacing. He's like, my elbow, your face. And it was the craziest thing. I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And he's hitting. Every time he's hitting me, he's like, F you, F you, F you. In the cage. It was very weird.
Did you fight a long-lost Diaz brother?
It was weird.
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
So, I beat him every round. Every judge 30-27, but I couldn't put him away. And at the end, he just walks up to me and was like, hey, man, good fight. And I'm just...
That was his alter ego.
It was so weird because I was lost. I was like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, I will kill you.
Yeah.
Like, flat out, I don't like it. And like then we later we talked in a different league though, and we're friends now. We're Facebook buddies.
So you had that one fight, you didn't get paid, you're still owed money.
No. What happened was I got paid. So I think I'm trying to think what year? What year? It's 2016 now.
Yeah.
That was in 2012.
Yeah.
2013, November 2nd.
And I know there's a 2-year statute of limitation on assault. So with that being said, yes, I did get paid, but how it worked was he gave me one check there, and then my second check, because they have to give you like a cashier's check.
Right.
My official check didn't go through.
Bounced?
My official check went through, and the other check didn't go through my bank account. So I was like, what is this, right? So I went to his house, and I'm like, yo, where's my money? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll pay you. The check will go through. Give me a sec. I waited a couple days. The check didn't go through. I called a couple of my buddies. The check didn't go through. So finally, I just drove to his house. I opened up his door. I walked in. And I said, listen, I'm literally going to get a knife and kill you. I'm like, if you think that I dress up as a superhero and I'm not a guy who escalates, you're an idiot. I'm going to kill you. You will pay me my money. And the next day, the check went through.
Weird how that works.
That would be the definition of escalation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I probably wouldn't have actually done it,
yeah.
But I mean, people need to understand when they deal with me, I'm going to do exactly what I say I'm going to do to the best of my ability. If I go out there tomorrow and I slip on it, or Saturday and I slip on an egg or a banana peel and I get hit, I mean, honestly, it's an act of God. Congratulations. Enjoy yourself. It's a celebration. But I mean, it happens. That's not my fault. But if I tell you on Friday I'm going to pay you, I'm either going to show up on Friday and pay you or call you and tell you why I'm not paying you. If you think that you can hide in your house, Tad, where with your address on the check that you gave me that doesn't work, you're an idiot.
It all is there. I would say most superheroes, they have an alter ego that's they're usually reporters, right? Because people think of that as being kind of the mild mannered,
the nerdy.
What you mean is you read a Superman comic.
Yeah. With those different, but we also have Peter Parker, right? But
Peter Parker's not a reporter. He's a
photographer. But
name one other superhero that's a reporter.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's because there's not.
They're usually. How about they're usually generally straight laced, kind of reserved. Whether it's Bruce Wayne, whether it's Peter Parker, they're kind of the mild meat guy in their regular life, and then
they're the anti-Trump.
Yes.
And you're a fighter in your alter ego.
Hmm? Well, I don't.
Well, which one's the alter ego?
I don't think there is an alter ego. I mean, to be completely honest, I think the difference is what people ask me,
mm-hmm.
right? when you're a cage fighter, you come in here and you guys ask me a question about cage fighting. We've had conversations about cage fighting. So when I give you a violent answer, that's what you'd expect, right? If I came in here as Ben the bowler and we talked about bowling, you wouldn't ask me about fights. It may get to that because I'll talk to you about leaving the bowling alley and getting into fights, but you wouldn't ask me that question, right?
Right.
If you ask me right now as a cage fighter what I think about criminals, I don't like them. And if there's a way for me to hurt you or take the things you take from other people, I will. If you ask Ben the fighter that question, he'll tell you the same thing. If you ask Ben the bowler, he'll tell you the same thing. The question is, people only ask me what they're interested in hearing about. They're not super interested in hearing my actual opinion. Like, we're not here talking about my opinion on the Republican candidate, right?
Go ahead. What do you think of him?
Oh, wow. I guess if we're really going to do this, right?
Yeah.
All right, Donald Trump's a racist, but being a racist doesn't necessarily immediately disqualify you from being the president. I kind of enjoy the open racism, which is a weird thing. Like in Dallas, Texas, when you walk into a store, they might go, buddy, you're in the wrong store. And you're like, sure? Yep, right down the street, go to Wade's. I'm like, all right. It's awkward, but at least I know where I stand.
You know who you're dealing
in Seattle,
with.
I'll have friends, and like 3 months later, they'll say something weird to me like, you know what, dude? For being a black dude, this is crazy that we're out here bowling. And I'm like, you do know that's racist, right? Like, he's like, well, no, I love black people. I got like 8 black friends. I'm like, yes, but you're still racist. You just don't, you're just subconsciously racist. Like, do I think that Donald Trump can run our country well? No. But do I hate criminals more than anything? Yes. And when you are a criminal, you cannot run for president. You cannot pass a background check, Hillary Clinton. You're a criminal. Then you make someone resign from the DNC to then become a part of your campaign. You are the worst candidate we have had in a long time, and I'm not going to get bamboozled, hustled, or swindled again. I already did the black vote once, and then I did the black vote again. I'm not going to do the white pretending to be black vote. It's not going to happen.
So he's the lesser of two evils in your mind?
He's the lesser of two evils.
He's a dangerous man.
But he's what I'm hoping that he's doing the pro wrestling stick, which is I'm crazy. And if you show up to my house, I might give you $1 million or I might kill you. So all those countries that are having a problem with me know that I will have a nuke and I'm crazy. And maybe everyone will calm down. There's that. There's also
maybe
that, though.
they might.
Yeah,
or...
there's also where that happens, and then the NWO shows up, and there's a huge thing, and Vince McMahon ends up destroying WCW and Nitro. You never know. I'm hoping it's not that.
What are you passionate about and interested in? Because I'll try and answer, because I'm completely fascinated and really interested in you, being a fighter, being someone who has fought crime. What are the things that you're most passionate about?
Wow, that's a hard question, I guess. It really goes in phases. I feel like people who are successful at something have a hard time not perseverating, if that makes any sense. Like, how do I explain it? When I'm a bowler, when I am focused on bowling, when bowling's what I want to do, it's all that I do. For 4 years, 3 or 4 years, all I did was fight crime every single day, right? Right now, all I'm doing is fighting and training to become an MMA fighter, a good one. You know, I don't know what I'll do tomorrow. The only difference is I know that I will do it better than whoever did it before me or whoever showed it to me. I'm sort of, like I said, I'm an escalator. I don't know where I'm going next. But right now, I love fighting, and that's what I want to do. And I want to go fight in Japan. I want to go over there, and I want to fight in Japan. That's where I want to go. And I will.
Why is that intriguing to you? I've always been fascinated by the Japanese promotions.
Yeah.
And you also have over there the line between pro wrestling and mixed martial arts is much fuzzier than it is here. There's still a line, but you can always debate about where that line's drawn in given things. What intrigues you about Japan?
You know what I like? I like it sounds funny. I'm a huge anime fan. Like I like comic books, I like comic characters, but I like anime characters more because they delve into real problems. Like, for example, you know, my favorite animes of all time, like Trigun and a bunch of different ones. The main character, episode 26, the main character you've been following the entire time, right, gets killed. Not only does he get killed, he gets murked. Like, shot full of bullet holes, walks into a church. He's a preacher. He walks into a church with a giant gun cross, because that's what he carries. He carries a cross with all these guns in it, right? and he has like a little head confessional. He sticks on people's heads and makes them confess their sins. It's pretty funny. Yeah. And he walks into a church, and it was the most like profound moment for me when I was like 15 when I watched it. He kneels down, he's bleeding, he's got this cross, and he goes, despite the profession I've chosen, I've actually never made a confession. It's these crazy times that we live in. We're not really sure who we are until it's too late. And I wish I had tried this earlier. It's kind of refreshing. And dies.
Wow.
And you're sitting there and you're like, what? And to me, Japan represents possibilities. You can do anything you want over there, and as long as you believe it, that's what you were. It took me 4 years to sell the idea to the world that I'm a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've stopped murders. I've stopped buses from being stolen. I've had an award from the FBI for stop finding a bomb. I mean, I've done stuff, and people look at me and they're like, yeah, that's a guy in a superhero suit. I could walk down the street in Japan with no credentials at all and say I'm a superhero, and they're like, hey, you know that guy who's a superhero? Oh, yeah, the guy who buys sandwiches down the street. That guy's great. I just love that you are what you are.
So they're much more accepting of something that's outside the norm.
Yeah, I'm
as
an
opposed to
outside-the-box fellow.
Where here they're more cynical and, okay, he's a guy walking around.
I would guess that. We all think there's an angle. Like, honestly, and that's a little bit of, like, kind of us talking to you about your
cynical,
brother.
Yeah,
we have a much more cynical. Have you ever talked to Sapp, Bob Sapp?
Man, I have a funny Bob Sapp story. Bob Sapp and I met at a show in Auburn, the Auburn Super Mall or whatever, where there used to be fights down there.
Yeah.
And he walked in the back, and this dude is huge, right? And I'm getting ready, warming up for a 155 fight, and he's like back there taking photos in my like locker area. So I get kind of mad. I'm like, get out of here, dude! Like, this is my locker. Like, what are you doing? Get out of here! Like, I don't care if you're Bob Sapp. I'm getting ready to fight for a title. Where's your title? You don't have any. That's right, because you're mediocre. Get out. Right? And Bob's like, oh, he's such a cute little guy. And he grabbed me by my shoulders. Not even a squeeze, just a pressure. Picked me up and sat me on his shoulder. And then put one hand on here, finished his conversation, took the rest of the photos, sat me back down, and then in a different voice, not a funny voice, right? He leaned in and he goes, don't you ever speak to me like that again. And he walked away. It was terrifying. It's been one of the weirdest experiences. It made me feel very awkward. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I just felt like it almost lost me the fight that day. It threw me out of my element completely.
It's emasculating to have a man set you on his shoulder.
I've never been manhandled like that in my life. And I mean, it wasn't a quick experience. I mean, I sat up there for like 2 or 3 minutes. And I just didn't know what to do. I'm like, I don't even know.
Because we should make it clear. At that point, Sapp's probably weighing 400 pounds.
Oh, yeah. He's out of shape,
enormous.
and he's huge, and I'm 160, and I was younger. I was an amateur still. I mean, I'm probably 5'9", 5'10". Yeah, it was a really horrible day.
Yeah, because he would train occasionally at AMC, where you've trained before.
Right. He was before my time.
Right. And Matt Hume would always say that he could never really train Bob because Bob's so lazy. And I've watched Bob do the conditioning test at the University of Washington when he was a senior, and he kind of comes undone in the last lap of the mile and like just completely hits a wall, and it's kind of pathetic.
Just
walks like his fights.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But Bob is someone who showed in Japan what we conceive of as the limits. Like, he really found an identity. Now, there was some racism involved in some of the caricatures that he played.
Which is hilarious.
But he also made a career for himself as this entity, the Beast.
I agree. I think racism is an interesting thing, right? Because, prepare to make every black person who listens angry, right? But there's stuff that's kind of racist, like Bob Sapp selling pictures of himself as a giant gorilla beating up white people in Japan. That's kind of racist. But it's also, you chose that level of racism. It's your own race, and it's funny. Then there's real racism, like Black Lives Matter, where all of a sudden we assume it's okay to shoot white cops because of a couple bad cops, right? Do I think that there's a race problem in America? Absolutely. Do I think police as a whole is a repressive organization that's somewhat like a gang that is systematically targeting black people? Yeah, in areas. But does that give us the right to go shoot them? No. And here's the biggest thing, and this is the part that black people don't get. So if you're listening and you're black, please pay attention. The police want you to march. They want you to make a scene. They want you to walk down the street and get angry with signs. They want to find the most ignorant person to interview on the street that just sounds like a complete idiot. Like, who's seen the Leprechaun video? Y'all seen the Leprechaun say, yeah. They found that guy, okay? What they don't want you to do is take your money and put it into legislation that will change cops and take away the laws that protect cops from shooting us. What they don't want you to do is to take the money from your job and put it towards candidates that actually believe in what they say. What they don't want you to do is act white with the black interest in mind. And the minute that you do that, there's going to be a real problem. But if you want to march with a sign that says Black Lives Matter and let Macklemore, a white person, lead you onto I-5 to stop traffic, you're an idiot. But it was a good song he made, and I enjoyed it.
Hey, how does law enforcement embrace you or not embrace you? I've always been curious if they look at you as somebody that's an impediment, you get in the way, or they're like, hey, this guy's helping us do our job. How are you received, I guess, by law enforcement?
You know, it's a different kind of thing, and it goes in stages. Like, most of my questions go in stages, unfortunately. But when I first started off, they didn't like me. In the middle, there was a little bit of like, oh, I see where this guy's going from, right? And the stage I'm at now, it doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is because I've told them it doesn't matter. I walked into the police station. I had a meeting. This was before we had the new chief. This is back when we had Diaz, right? And I said, look, you guys don't like me. I don't think. I said, I don't care. I have a 40-person lawyer team. I now have white people money and credit cards. I'm going to continue to fight crime. So you can either take my evidence and use it, or I can put your bad police work on YouTube, and you can look like idiots. I would prefer to work with you. I don't care if you like me. I don't want to have a conversation with you. Just give me an email and a phone number, and I'll drop my evidence off, and as long as you act appropriately, we'll be all right. And then when they went to talk, I said, stop. Nothing you have to say matters because you have to follow the book and the rules. So your opinion is irrelevant. I'm a citizen. My opinion's relevant. I'm going to leave now. So I'll expect an email with either a phone number and a place to be contacted. They gave me that, and that's what I do. So I guess their opinion is kind of irrelevant.
Well, so I guess they sort of embrace it then, is what you're saying, on some level.
Whether they do or they don't, they have to do their job.
Right.
See, that's the thing that I don't think people get about being a cop. Your political opinion, your personal opinions, none of this should matter. You should do your job, right? And that's why the Black Lives Matter protest doesn't work, because you're taking it to the place where police are forced to do their job. They have to watch you while you march in the streets. They have to do certain things, and then it's discretion on how the cop feels. If you were to write a letter and get 50, 60,000 black people to sign it and then take that letter to Congress where you belong, where the police cannot go into the building, stand inside the Congress building and say, we're not leaving till you understand 60,000 people in this one place feel oppressed and we're doing something. All of a sudden now there's a real problem. But marching in the street, I mean, enjoy yourself. That doesn't really work. I mean, the last time that was going to work was Martin Luther King, because it was a new thing then. When Martin Luther King did it, what he was showing was, look at all these peaceful black people. Do you want them angry? Because we're already getting beat up. We're already getting killed. Maybe we should take a few of you with us. That was a problem. That's not the state anymore. There's a lot to lose if you're black and you start getting militant and angry, because you can still go to Sizzlers if you want to. There's not a black Sizzlers and a white Sizzlers. You can have mediocre food anywhere.
Yeah. That truly might be the American dream. Is to get mediocre food anywhere.
I agree.
Everybody's got access to mediocre food.
That's why I tattooed the American flag right there, because these colors don't run. You know what I'm saying?
Ben, you mentioned kind of interviews going in stages.
Yeah.
And we start out with the MMA questions, then we go to the superhero. I want to say thank you. This has really been enjoyable for me. I've loved getting to meet you. I look forward to seeing your fight. I'm planning to go up there to Everett. You can also watch it on NBC Sports.
Did you guys get tickets already? Because I brought you guys tickets.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be
Good.
fantastic.
I got you guys tickets, so I don't know how many you need, but
By the way, are you going by Phoenix Jones just to differentiate between you and your brother in this? Because I've seen you fight at Super Fight League. You go by Ben Fodor. But here I'm looking at the bout sheet. They've got you down as Phoenix Jones.
yeah. So that's see. I'm glad you caught me hungry. I can actually answer this. The World Series of Fighting is paying me an exorbitant amount of money, and at that point, I think it was they wanted to use the fame that goes along with the Phoenix Jones thing. I would love to keep it separate. It's annoying to me. It sucks, but
It's annoying to go by Phoenix Jones.
yeah, because it's not my real name. I spent my entire career building a career as Ben Fodor, the MMA fighter. I spent a time spending a career as Phoenix Jones. They're different, but if you're going to offer me, $5,000 to fight as Ben Fodor or $40,000 to fight as Phoenix Jones, I'll take the 40.
Right.
So I guess in this one case, this is where you can buy something. So I guess you bought the name, enjoy it. It was a raffle, enjoy.
Is that something you'll pursue as your career grows? Let's assume you just keep winning and it becomes what you do all of the time. The superhero thing, is that something you're still going to pursue, or are you going to look at it and go, I can't do it anymore?
No, this fuels my superheroing. This is fun. Fighting crime is it's like the best thing ever. Like, there's nothing like catching criminals, especially because they're idiots.
Right.
So they don't know what's going to happen until it happens.
How does it work? Are you just roaming certain streets? How do you?
Crime's not hard in Seattle.
Right, are you targeting, all right, something's always going down in this neighborhood, I'm just going to start walking up and down this street, or is it different every night?
It's kind of like that, but I mean, if you look at a crime map, there's only 3 spots in Seattle that have crime, all right? And it's pretty obvious. It's Capitol Hill after 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of those parks, any of those dark areas. It's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and Pike where the bus stations are during 9 to probably midnight. It used to be Belltown on 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and Bell by the dog park. That has now moved to Pioneer Square. It's Pioneer Square earlier in the day right next to Union Gospel Mission. So if you want to find crime, you just go there. And you get 3 or 4 guys in regular clothes to walk around circles around the neighborhood. You go in your car, play your portable Xbox with your suit on, and then you wait for one of them to radio you, and then you go beat up the bad guy.
What inspired you to do that?
Someone broke into my car, and my son got hurt in the process of all this, and the police were letting me know, they're like, well, there's nothing we can really do. I'm like, how is there nothing you can do? Your job as a police officer is to solve crimes. And the cop kind of informed me, he goes, actually, that's not our job. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, see, like in the old days, cops used to walk a beat, and they would show up while crimes were happening, and they would stop them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now our job is to investigate crimes and let a judge decide whether that person's guilty. I actually don't stop crime personally. And I was like, well, then who stops crime? He goes, well, no one stops crime. Crime's going to happen. We just make sure that people who do crime don't get to repeat. And it blew my mind. And I thought about it. I was like, well, he's right. So I guess since you're not going to do your job, maybe I should. So I went and I found the traffic cams, subpoenaed the traffic cam footage from the city, found the guy who broke into my car, followed it back to his car, ran his license plate, paid money, drove to his house, picked him up, made him apologize to my kid, and then went after everyone else. Because
That's
you can
awesome.
do anything you want with white people, credit cards, money, and time.
Now, have you ever gotten in trouble because the laws are so weird, right? I mean, somebody could be committing a crime. You walk up and beat the hell out of them, maybe you're in trouble for assault. I mean,
Yeah,
it's amazing how many rights a criminal has, and I'm wondering if you've ever been on the wrong side of it where all of a sudden Joe Scumbag is pressing charges against you.
I've been arrested, upper of 40-something times.
Jeez.
Been charged only once, and it got dropped in court.
Because of this is all in the...
Yeah, I mean, the key is knowing the legal limit and knowing when to call the cops and when not to call the cops, right? So if your job as a cop isn't to actually stop crime, it's just to investigate and make sure the person doesn't repeat, right? Well, then let's say a guy walks by and steals a purse from a girl and runs down the street. I run and I steal that purse back,
Mm-hmm.
and I give the purse to the woman.
Mm-hmm.
The woman waits, calls the cops show up, the guy goes, and he goes to jail for that. That guy's probably not going to, I need the police to make sure he's not going to repeat because he can't be on the street. Right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You show up and you get into a fist fight outside a nightclub, pull out a knife and go to stab somebody. And I show up and just beat the crap out of you. Take your knife, put it in my pocket, and let you know you're stupid. And then put you on YouTube, which gets over 1 million hits, so you look like a moron. That's your deterrent. There's no need for me to call the cops because you made a bad life decision. And now that life decision will live on YouTube under Phoenix Jones Beats Up a Racist, which is a real clip. And it's got, I think, like 7 million views. So if you ever want to see me beat up a racist, feel free to go on YouTube.
I'm going to Google YouTube that. You got stabbed, right?
Yeah, that was a good stabbing. I was pretty impressed.
And you had, and part of the protective gear that you had on helped prevent you from being more injured?
Yeah. So here's the funny thing about bulletproofing, which I didn't understand, and someone should have explained it to me. That's what happens when you buy your stuff from Israel. You can't read the instructions. So when someone comes up and stabs you, and a bulletproof vest works like this. A bullet flies at it, it hits it, and it works like a catcher's mitt. It kind of flexes back and flexes forward. And the depression, how much it depresses into your body is the rating of the bulletproof, right? So I was wearing an inch deflection, meaning it goes about an inch into your body before it flexes back out. So you'll break some ribs, you'll get hurt, but you won't die. A knife has a point. So when it deflects and when the refer back comes to where it would come forward, the knife pierces, just not as deep.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I'm out fighting crime, and this is such a funny thing, man. How much time do we have? Do we have a minute?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So the first 6 months of me fighting crime was literally the adventures of how not to fight crime. It started off with me like I would climb buildings, which is hard, and I would stand on top of them and I'd peer down into a diseased world, right? And while I'm up there, I see this girl get mugged. So I run to the fire escape, climb down the fire escape, jump on the building, get onto the truck I'd used to get up there, crawl down the truck, make it to the ground, and she's just sitting there, and I'm like, "Which way did it go?" And she's like, "What kind of superhero are you? You're the stupidest superhero. Like, where were you?" I'm like, "Well, I was on the building." And she's like, "Why would you stand in a building you can't get down from to help me fight crime? Like, I'm going to call the real cops. You look stupid. Your outfit's stupid. This is ridiculous." Because my first outfit was just spandex and a cape.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the first outfit. It's straight stupid. I look like Darkwing Duck or like Count Chocula. It's bad. So, of course, I'm like, all right, well, I know what to do next. You know, obviously, the getting up and down buildings is the problem. So I bought a grappling hook, right? Also stupid. So I'm chasing this criminal, and like a week later, he goes up a parking garage. I throw a grappling hook up. I start climbing the side of this building, and he starts going down. So I start climbing down, and I see him run back up. So I start climbing back up, and I'm now like super sweaty and uncomfortable and tired. As I'm climbing back up, he runs out the bottom. He's like, "Idiot!" Just takes out down the street. So I was like, all right, grappling hooks are stupid. So I'm like, all right, net gun. So I bought this like hog hunting net gun.
Right.
And it's like 3 pounds. And at the time I'm trying to keep a secret identity, and I can't figure out how I'm going to keep my superhero suit away from the public because I don't want to walk around in just a regular ski mask because I didn't have a full-on cool suit at that point. So I went to my friend who owns a strip club and got a breakaway tuxedo. So I'm walking around Capitol Hill in this breakaway white stripper tuxedo holding this net gun underneath my
breakaway
coat. Right?
Oh my God.
So I finally see this criminal breaking into cars up at Capitol Hill on the Union, the little Union Street off by Podog, where there's all the glass from all the break-ins, right? And I see him, and I take off after him. I'm running. I pull out this hog hunting net gun, and I don't know anything about hog hunting, but I guess you're at a blind and you shoot it down on a running hog. You're not chasing said hog. So you're
dropping it down on him.
Right. So I'm running and I'm chasing him. I pull this thing out, break the Boys to Men coat off. I'm ready to go. And I just bang, I fire this thing. The net opens up, it's flying forward, and I run right into it. I net myself.
You caught yourself.
And I'm over by the little park by Cal Anderson. There's these little drainage ditches, and it rains a lot. And I fall face down into this drainage ditch. My arms are pinned in this hog hunting net. I still have these half white breakaway tuxedo pants on, and this cape. And I'm face down in the water, and about 1.5 inches of water. And I realized I'm gonna die. And I'm not going to be able to explain myself to my people. They're just going to find me
in this outfit.
Yeah, like just face down in a hog net, dead. And I'm literally drowning. And as I'm drowning, I feel these hands on my back turn me over. And it's this criminal. And he's all like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, thank God I'm not drowning." And he's like, "You're an idiot." He's like, "Are you serious right now? You're out here, you're going to fight crime? Like, what are you doing?" And he's like, so he takes my wallet, he takes my money, gives me my wallet back, punches me in the face.
But saved your life.
And it's like, "You're an idiot." I don't think he was trying to. I think it's just coincidence. He's like, "You're an idiot." And he just leaves me there. So a cop car rolls by. I think the officer's name was Officer Newsom. I think it was Officer Newsom or Officer Park. I don't remember. And he comes over to me and says, "What are you doing?" So I explain the whole story about how I'm going to fight crime and be a superhero. And by the time it's over, I've met the entire East Precinct because they've driven everyone down to meet me in my nice breakaway tuxedo, which they were cool enough to pick up for me and let me put on and take some pretty cool photos with me, which I'll pull up the photo and show you of me and this cop flexing. It's pretty terrible. So I'm walking back to my car pretty dejected, and I hear this woman, "Help, help." And I'm like, finally. That's my call. Tuxedo's off again after spending like 10 minutes snapping it together. Breakaway tuxedo might come off easy. They come on real stupid because they're snaps. And you've got to sit there and sit down and snap. So I finally break it off again, right? And I go running in. And there's this criminal, and he's got this woman's purse. And he had pulled the purse and cut the strap, right? Only the strap had like a metal cord in it, so it didn't cut all the way. So now he's just got this knife in his hand, and this woman's there pulling on her purse, right? So I walk up, and I'm still in the catchphrase game, like at this point, where I'm still trying to like yell at things to be cool. Like, so I show up and I'm like, stop. You don't want none of this. So the dude turns around and looks at me, and it's the guy who punched me in the face from earlier.
Oh, man.
And he just turns around and just shanks me. Whoop! Like unceremoniously just shank. And I don't even have hands out to block. I've got hands on both hips, like K-path over. Just like, stop. Yeah. And it just stabs me. And I'm like, oh my God, I got stabbed. But in real life, it was the coolest thing to happen to me ever, because I had to realize you realize who you are in moments like that. And I said, you know what you are, man? You're an ex-bowler, almost professional cage fighter. You're not a catchphrasing, yelling superhero. And if you act like this, you're going to die. And then he comes at me, and I immediately hands up in the block. I slip both his shots like they're punches. Uppercut, 5-2-3, set him down into the wall, disarmed him, took him down, grabbed this, like at the time, I don't know if you guys have seen them. They're little caps that fit on the top of those drain ditches, the little circular caps.
Yeah.
I picked one up, and as he's about to move, I just tossed it like a bowling ball, nailed him in the back, and dropped him. And I'm like, what? Walked over there. I sat down next to him. I had my little duct tape roll I keep on my superhero belt, duct taped his right hand to his left leg, his left hand to his right foot. I'm sitting next to him, and I'm like, how do you feel, buddy? Like an idiot? I'm like, yeah, I feel pretty stupid. So I picked up his wallet, took my money back. Yeah. I'm like, that's right.
Awesome.
It's my $40 and your $40. What? Little interest. As I do, this cop light shines on me and from the cop car, and the woman gets out of the back of the car, and she goes, it's that guy. And the cop goes, the one duct taped. And he looks at me, and he goes, Phoenix Jones? And I'm like, Officer Park. And he goes, holy crap. And he walks over and he goes, you caught a bad guy. And I'm like, I caught a bad guy. And he's looking at me, he's like, this is crazy. So he radios it in, and more cops show up. Now we got like 8 cop cars. They're like, this is crazy. They picked this guy up off the ground. They looked at him and said, hey, man, you know what? If you got caught by this idiot, maybe crime's not for you.
Oh, man.
And they're like, the only thing to make this better would be a video. And it hit me. I'm like, the only thing to make this better would be a video. And that's
from that day forward.
That's how it started. Yeah.
Man, that is. Hey, before we let you go, I got to ask you about the fight, though.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Even we've seen teammates fight each other. They know each other's game as well as anybody. But you guys, as we talked about, Karros has been in your corner, so I would assume he knows what you do really well and maybe what you don't do well. Mm-hmm. How much of that is in your mind going, all right, he's going to expect me to do this because he thinks I don't do this well, or I lean on this. Maybe I lean on my jab, or maybe I'm leaning on a single leg take. Whatever it is, just the familiarity. Is that something you're thinking about as you train?
No. Karros is taking your emotions out and looking at just objectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Karros is only good at a few things. He's a grinder. He pushes you up against the cage and elbows you and knees you against the cage, limiting your motion and your mobility. That's what he's good at.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to learn to be good at something else in a short amount of time. That's who he is. That's what he does. He doesn't have a lot of power in the center of the cage. He might say stuff like he's going to knock me out, but let's be honest. You've knocked one person out in 15 fights, and that guy was running forward and has been knocked out by others. You're not going to knock me out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, congratulations, I didn't see that one coming. And if you take me down in the middle of the cage, his ground game is better than mine. He's got a Kimura and a leg lock series. Both of those, if he gets me in those, I'm in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Karros, you know what I'm good at. I'm good. I hit hard. I knock a lot of people out. As an amateur, I had 18 or 19 knockouts. I knock people out.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that I have so many submissions is because I hit people and they fall over and they're not out, and I jump on them and submit them. But it's really 4 TKOs or 4 knockouts. I'm not going to all of a sudden get better at what I'm not at. So for me, it's simple. Stay off the ground and hit him hard. For him, it should be really simple. Push him against the cage, put him on the ground, and hurt him. The question is who lands first and who does it first, and how long the person can hold out. I'm younger, I'm a better athlete, and I'm used to winning. You're used to losing. So when you put it together, I think I'll lose most of this fight. I think Karros will be beating me for most percentage of most rounds until he gets caught. He'll either go to sleep or he'll get caught from a submission after being dazed. It's just what it is. He's not going to be able to keep the pace that I have. He's not going to be able to keep the pressure I have. It's not going to happen. But he will be winning a good portion of this fight.
Now, you said taking emotion out of it. How hard is that going to be, though?
Oh, during the day, it's going to nearly be impossible. But looking at it objectively before I get there is pretty simple. I'm hoping I don't punch him at the weigh-in because I don't want to deal with the fine. Every time I see him, like when I go to my parents' house and I see him, I just want to hit him in the face for doing this. So I'm just hoping I'm able to not like lose my shit completely.
So you've seen him at places, like you've run into him at your parents' house?
Yeah.
Since the fight's been made.
Yeah. And we haven't really spoke, but it's just like
Just tension.
yeah. It's so weird because to him, he somehow feels this is a justified thing. Like for him, I know he feels like, well, we were friends and we're not friends now. We've always talked about fighting each other and this is what we're going to do, And in my mind, I'm like, when we talked about fighting each other, we were friends. And we were going to go in there and throw down and fight and then afterwards go get, I don't know, fish and chips. I love fish and chips. But now we're talking about not doing that. We're talking about hurting each other in a real meaningful way. It's a different thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
You've crossed a line where it's hurt my feelings. And I don't know how I'm going to respond to that. In my brain, I sort of see it somewhere between like an angry, teary rage beatdown. And I'm just hoping I don't do it early. I'm just hoping I don't hit him early or like start crying or do something weird. It won't stop my progression. Like I'm still going to win and I'm still going to hurt you. But I may be doing it while crying, which I'm hoping is not the case because that's awkward and hard to explain to your children.
It is.
But his goal, and I would assume your goal, is to get you out of your game by becoming angry or emotional. That's when guys start slipping.
That doesn't work for me. I'm an emotional guy anyway. I mean,
that doesn't impact your game plan.
No, I mean, if you think about it, someone broke into my car and hurt my kid, and I mean, he got cut, but not badly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my response is, I'm so emotional right now that I'm going to spend 3 months tracking this guy down, buy a $10,000 bulletproof suit, and spend the next 4 years ridding the world of crime, right? Like, I'm an emotional guy. Like, you shouldn't be shocked. I go to a bowling alley, I enter a bowling tournament on a whim and lose, and spend the next 3 years becoming a national bowling champion and fighting in Hayden Lake, Idaho. Like, me doing emotional things shouldn't be a shock at this point.
Right.
You know?
I'm just talking about in the moment in the cage when you're trying to stick to a particular game plan where that's what you always hear, especially in boxing. It was like, if I can get that guy angry, I'm going to win. I'm going to get it. He's going to start doing things he hasn't been training to do. He's going to abandon his game plan and try to.
It's his fuel. It sounds like
that's
your fuel.
That's how I live my life. The best way to beat me would be to hit me with small shots that don't actually hurt me while never engaging me in a real fight. And never engaging my emotions in any way. Because I'd be like, oh, it kind of sucks. Let's jab it out. We're moving. Okay, good shot. Oh, it's funny, bro. And at the end, 3 rounds are over, and I lost on points. And I'm like, wow, I never really fought. I never really got angry. Yeah, and that sucked.
You never got emotionally engaged.
I never got emotionally invested.
Yeah.
You know?
How are your parents? You talk about being at your parents' house together. What do they do? Are they going to go, first of all?
No.
Second of all, how are they handling
They're not
this?
going. And my mom has been pretty vocal about how she feels. She wishes the fight wasn't going to happen. She's tried to ask us to cancel it, and she's been pretty vocal about she doesn't really like it. And she gave us different advice because she knows us. She gave us different advice because she knows us differently. She gave Karos the advice. She said, he's got like really, really mean elbows, and she's like, if you can not elbow him and avoid cutting his face up, that would be great. And the advice that she gave me is, she said, you cross the line a lot emotionally. She's like, don't kill him. If you have the opportunity to kill him, don't kill him. Don't break his arms. Don't break his legs. Don't kill him. Because, I mean, in my line of work and in my theory of fighting, right, if I destroy you to the point that there's no rematch, then there's no rematch. So if I get a submission, I try to break it because there's no rematch. I mean, once they tap, I let go.
Right.
But from 0 to tap, my attempt is to break it. If I hit you, my attempt is to knock you out, so there's no rematch. And my attempt with Karos, I feel, is going to be the same. If I can, I mean, he's in a bad position. He fought for the UFC, got fired. Fought for Strikeforce, they got bought, and then he got fired. He fought for ONE FC. His coach owns ONE FC. He still can't get a fight over there. Imagine that. Bellator doesn't want you, which I had an offer from and turned down. You're the only league left in the world that can pay you. And now you're going to lose 2 in a row because you lost the last one to Firmino, and then you're going to lose to me. I'm going to end your career. And if I can end your career with a broken leg or a broken arm or just you sitting in your house thinking, I should have never said that, I'm going to. And I might feel bad about it afterwards, but that's after.
He is Ben Fodor. He's going to be fighting on Saturday night in Everett, 7:30. You can also see it on NBC Sports. It's going to be carried there It's the World Series of Fighting, their event there. Ben, it's been a blast to meet you. And I'll say this, you've got a huge fan in me. I've loved just hearing your kind of journey through life and what's important and the priorities. It's inspiring.
It's been a weird world. It's a weird world.
We appreciate it, man. That was awesome.
All right, thanks. Hey, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at the Phoenix Jones. Instagram is let me think, at the Phoenix Jones. My Facebook is at the Phoenix Jones, and my my website is, babe, what's my website again? Is it? Oh, it's www at the Phoenix Jones.
She's not playing along. She's just giving you a blank stare.
I'm familiar with that reaction. That's how my wife reacts to most of my jokes.
My girl,
deadpan.
My girl's in the studio right now. You guys can't see it because I know there's no video, right? But she comes out and she fights crime with me and she does a whole lot of things. But she's the one who keeps my stuff level. She'll literally look at me with this look that is just like, you are invaded. I don't find you funny. I don't find it amusing.
That was kind of that look. That was very stoic, just straight face. She was not chuckling. She's heard this before.
Exactly. So yeah. Every time as well, I'll try to get her to play in, and she will just look at me and go, "It's not gonna happen."
Yeah.
You're still not funny to me.
Yeah.
Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you.
He explained his Twitter handle is the Phoenix Jones.
At the Phoenix Jones.
And our Twitter handle for the podcast is Fight MMA Podcast, all one word. Fight MMA Podcast. I hope you guys are enjoying the conversations. We're still kind of, it's taken shape who we're going to talk to, but hopefully Josh Barnett and now Ben Fodor, it shows you we're going to talk to guys who are fighting, the characters that are part of this fight game, and hopefully just see where the conversation takes us.
This was, again, I feel like we're raising the bar every week. I mean, Josh is a big name, and he was a great interview, but it's hard to find somebody who's more candid and just out there with what they're thinking at the moment. And Ben gave us the warning right away. Like, when I'm cutting weight, there's no filter. I just say whatever. And he was right.
See, usually, and you mentioned this, when guys cut weight, they're miserable.
Yes.
I mean, you think about, you basically
They don't want to speak.
No, you go through days at a time where, because a weight cut is not a 24-hour process. It's usually a week-long buildup of getting your body ready, and you're essentially treating your body like a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
You're squeezing every bit of water out of it and leaving the dried-up husk. Then you'll make weight, and then you're going to try to fill your body back up with as much water as possible.
Yeah, you're filling this water balloon back up. It's an awful process. It's awful. And you've got a guy who walks around at 205 cutting down to 162 pounds.
That's gnarly. It's just it's incomprehensible.
And as we spoke, he said he's 15 away. I mean, imagine most people are like, yeah, I'm gonna go on a diet this month, try to lose 15 pounds this month. He's doing it. It's Wednesday. He's fighting Saturday. He's going to lose 15 more pounds between today and Friday when they weigh in. So he's basically got 2 days.
And here was his explanation. Well, the last 10 you just do on the final day, and that's all water. You just get rid of the water. And what he gave us, that 3.5 hours to work out, was it 5 pounds of water weight? That you take care of and just going in the sauna. But yeah, he's just real five more real pounds, because then
Unbelievable.
The 10 of water weight, that just happens on the final
Again,
day.
most people looking to lose weight would be really excited about losing 15 pounds in a month.
Oh, and he's just
doing
going
it
to do
in 2
it.
days.
And then he's going to try to fill it back up as much as he can, so you carry as much weight as you are. The best description I've ever heard from a fighter, when I was asking why the weight cuts? Like, why not just weigh in what you weigh at and fight at? And everybody would be a little bit heavier. And his description was, if you're tough enough to lose the weight, you deserve to carry the extra weight in the fight. That if you're disciplined and tough enough to be able to treat your body like that, you deserve to weigh more in the fight, because it's a huge advantage to be 3 or 4 pounds heavier than the guy you're fighting.
Yeah, and especially if you're a guy that's a big frame guy and you're going up against, we talked about Connor. He's a huge 145er. I mean, that's a really unnatural weight for him. So when he steps into the cage, he's got a distinct size advantage, a very big size advantage. In fact, I'll be stunned if he's able to cut down to that again. It's not good for him. It's really unhealthy. That's how much bigger he is than that. So it is a huge advantage for guys who aren't cutting nearly as much weight to get to that. It's a much more natural weight for them. You figure once you put that weight back on, your size and strength is so dominant. And you cut to 45, you probably walk into the cage at 65, 68. These guys are gaining over 20 pounds between the time they weigh in and the time they step in the cage. That's a lot. That's a lot for a guy who might be a little closer to that weight. Naturally, he might put on 7-8 pounds in that time. So it's such a distinct advantage. So I understand why they do it, but it's really unhealthy.
Yeah, you sit there and watch what they do. I think the thing I liked most, other than Ben's stories, because Ben's such a great storyteller, I think the thing that was coolest, and one of the things that I've always enjoyed about the sport of MMA, is that you hear someone, their dreams and their hopes for themselves kind of get crystallized in this build-up to a fight, where they're imagining what this is going to be able to do for them, the trajectory their career is on. Ben Fodor looks at himself and says, I'm a 6-1-1 mixed martial artist. A win in this sort of fight against this sort of competition on a card that's being carried on NBC Sports, it's the next step in my progression. For him, he's doing it not to necessarily take care of a family or anything, but to fight crime.
Yeah.
To sort of to fund his day job. But you see the ambitions of fighters, and I truly think that people who think they're lunkheads and that sort of thing, there's a lot more hope and work that goes into this than people think.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody that listened to that conversation walks away with that feeling, right? I mean, you understand that, all right, this guy's not a meathead. This is a guy with a lot of deep thoughts, whether you agree with them or not, are completely different conversations, but he's a guy who's incredibly driven, incredibly competitive, whether it's bowling, which I had no knowledge of, by the way, whether it's bowling, whether it's, like he said, playing Parcheesi, he's just a guy, like a lot of them, that are absolutely driven with a weird competitive nature that most people can't relate to, right? And that's what distinguishes the guys that do things as a professional, whether it's the NFL, Major League Baseball, MMA, and the guys who like do it for fun the way I do in training jiu-jitsu and things. I'm not looking to compete. I'm not looking to go out there and do it for a living. It takes a different human being to step into that cage and do it for real.
It's going to be really fun to watch his fight on Saturday. We're also going to have a UFC card to talk about. That is Woodley Lawler that'll be going on, and then to build up to UFC 202, which I know is going to be one of my most anticipated fights of the year. Yeah, Diaz-McGregor that's going to be there. We thank you for listening. We want you to subscribe on iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, and Bob and I will both be sending out the links to this week's episode and as we move ahead.
Absolutely, and this is one I hope people tune into. This is one, I mean, I want them to tune into all of them. But this is one I think, even if you have no knowledge of who Phoenix Jones or Ben Fodor is, you're going to be intrigued. He's a guy you're just going to sit there and listen to and go, what is he talking about? And the story, it's fantastic. So I'm going to be tweeting out the link. You'll tweet it. I just want people to experience it. Whether they like it or not, I think they'd be really entertained by the conversation.
Yeah, and at the very least, I learned how to pronounce his last name. Ben Fodor.
He said like odor with an F.
Yeah, which I was like, that's a really funny sort of tool to teach someone how to...
I'm guessing he's had to do it a few times.
Probably has. Bob, this has been a blast.
Do it again next week.
Sounds good. Thank you for listening.